years old, and until a few months ago, I thought I had my life figured out. 4 years with my boyfriend Justin. 2 years living together in our little apartment that smelled like fresh coffee on Sundays and takeout on Fridays. I was an architect, he was in marketing, and on the surface, we were just another couple building towards someday. Someday marriage, someday kids, someday that dream house we joked about when scrolling Zillow listings late at night. But looking back, I can see the cracks that were already forming. Justin had a way of laughing at my job, saying things like, "So you draw lines on a computer all day in front of friends." He never meant it as a joke that landed. It chipped away at me. I told myself it didn't matter. That he loved me in his own way. That we were solid. That illusion shattered on the night of my sister's wedding. Sophia, my baby sister, was glowing. She'd just finished graduate school and married Andy, her college sweetheart. The ceremony was held at this vineyard an hour outside the city, late September, the kind of day when the air is crisp and the leaves are just starting to blush gold. I was emotional proud. Watching her walk down the aisle felt like handing her off to the next stage of her life. Mom was openly crying, Dad doing that thing where he rubbed his nose like allergies were to blame. And me, I thought maybe being there, wrapped in the warmth of family, would nudge Justin and me into finally having that real talk about our future. The reception was breathtaking. String lights swayed in the twilight. The DJ played throwbacks that had even the grandparents dancing. It should have been perfect, and for a while it was. I mingled with cousins I hadn't seen in years, hugged relatives who pinched my cheeks like I was still 12. Justin was off somewhere, charming strangers the way he always did. Then I saw him at the bar. He was talking to Clara, one of Sophia's bridesmaids. Clara had been Sophia's roommate back in college, a bright, successful woman working in commercial real estate. Beautiful, confident, the kind of person who fills a room without even trying. They were standing close, his body angled toward hers, the way you lean in when you want someone's full attention. Clara laughed at something he said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. And just like that, I felt the twist in my stomach. I told myself not to be that woman, not to overthink a laugh or a touch on the arm, not to ruin my sister's wedding with my insecurity. But as I stood there watching Justin lean closer, the unease didn't go away. It grew sharper, heavier. I walked over holding 2 glasses of wine, trying to appear casual. Here you go, I said, offering him one. Justin glanced at me, his smile lazy. Oh, I already have one. Clara was just telling me about this insane deal she closed in Miami. $1 million property. Crazy, right? That's impressive, I said. We design buildings. Designing lines isn't exactly the same as closing $1 million deals, Natalie. He chuckled. Clara shifted uncomfortably. Justin, but he wasn't done. He leaned in, his eyes locked on hers, and said it. I wish I'd waited for someone like you. The world stopped. He said it so casually as if it was a harmless thought. But it wasn't harmless. It was a knife. And he twisted it by adding, someone with real ambition, someone exciting. The noise of the reception blurred into static. I stood there clutching 2 glasses of wine like a fool, while the man I'd built a life with told another woman that she was what he really wanted. My aunt was standing a few feet away. Her face froze mid-conversation. Claire's expression shifted from polite amusement to pure horror. Justin, she stammered, that's not okay. He finally turned in, noticing me. Oh my God, Natalie, relax. It was a joke. You're being way too sensitive. My throat burned, but no words came out. This is exactly what I mean, he added, still addressing Clara like I wasn't there. She makes everything so heavy. It's supposed to be fun, but with Natalie, it's always serious. Clara looked at him like he was poison. I think you've had too much to drink, she muttered, stepping back. But Justin just smirked. I couldn't breathe. My body was trembling, but my face felt frozen. I set the untouched glasses down on the bar and walked away before the tears betrayed me in front of my entire family. Out past the string lights where the manicured lawn melted into endless rows of grapevines, I finally let myself breathe. My hands shook as I pressed them to my face. 4 years. 4 years of compromises, of swallowing the little insults, of convincing myself we were happy, and he'd shredded it all in one sentence. Natalie. I turned. Sophia was there, her wedding dress trailing in the grass, her mascara smudged from tears. I wasn't sure we're happy or furious anymore. You're supposed to be celebrating, I whispered. And you're supposed to not look like your heart just got stomped on at my reception, she shot back. Her eyes were blazing. What the hell was that? What's wrong with him? You heard? Half the family heard. Mom wants to toss him out herself. Natalie, he humiliated you. I swallowed the weight of it, pressing down harder. He didn't just humiliate me, Soph. He told the truth. That's what hurts. Sophia grabbed my hand. No. What hurts is that you've given him 4 years of your life, and this is how he pays you back. You deserve better. You've always deserved better. Her words cracked something in me. For the rest of the night, I went on autopilot. Justin danced like nothing had happened. He laughed, he toasted, he posed for photos. Every time our eyes met, he looked annoyed, like I was the problem for not letting it go. By the time we got in the car, the silence between us was louder than the music still echoing in my head. And deep down, I already knew this wasn't something I could ever come back from. The drive home was suffocating. The headlights carved tunnels through the dark, but inside the car it felt like I was trapped in a soundproof box with a stranger. Justin's knuckles tapped on the steering wheel in rhythm with the GPS's voice, as if nothing had happened. I stared out the window, counting the miles of black asphalt, every muscle in my body clenched so tightly it hurt. My chest burned. My hands twisted together in my lap. Over and over his words looped in my head. I wish I'd waited for someone like you. He hadn't said it to me. He hadn't even thought about the consequences of saying it in front of me. He just meant it. I glanced at him once, just once. His profile was calm, almost bored. No flicker of guilt, no tension in his jaw. Just Justin humming under his breath. It made me feel invisible. When we pulled into our apartment complex, he yawned, unbuckling his seatbelt. God, what a long night. Your sister throws a good party, though. I couldn't even look at him. Inside, he kicked off his shoes, unbuttoning his dress shirt, humming a tune like this was any other Saturday night. He tossed his jacket over a chair. What's with the face? He asked, finally noticing I hadn't moved past the doorway. I shut the door softly, my hands trembling. Justin, we need to talk. He groaned, rubbing his face. Now I'm exhausted. Can this wait until tomorrow? No, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. It can't wait. He sighed, the put-upon sound he used whenever I asked him to take out the trash or help with groceries. Fine. What? What you said to Clara tonight. Justin blinked, then smirked, like I'd just reminded him of a mildly embarrassing story. Oh my God. You're really going to make a thing out of that, Natalie. It was a joke. Everyone was drinking. Nobody's going to remember. I remember I said, my throat tight. And so does my entire family. You humiliated me, Justin, at my sister's wedding. He laughed, actually laughed, and shook his head. You're unbelievable. Stupid. My voice cracked. You told another woman you wished you'd waited for her instead of me. How is that a joke? He rolled his eyes. You're too sensitive. You twist everything I say. Clara didn't take it seriously. Why are you... Because it wasn't a joke, I snapped. Because you meant it. His face shifted, the humor draining. For a moment he looked calculating. Then he scoffed. You know, maybe if you were more confident, you wouldn't be so paranoid all the time. I felt my chest cave in. He was doing it again, turning the knife, twisting it until I doubted myself. Don't do that, I whispered. Don't make this about me being insecure. This is about what you said, Justin, about how little you think of me. What do you want me to say, huh? His voice rose. Do you want me to beg? To grovel? Oh, Natalie, I'm so sorry your precious feelings got hurt. Is that what you want? I want you to admit it, I said quietly. Admit what he demanded. That you don't respect me. That you don't see me as enough. That you've been making me small for years. He stared at me, his chest heaving. For a second, I thought maybe he would. Maybe the mask would crack and I'd finally see the truth slip out. Instead, he snorted, You're insane. I sat down on the edge of the bed we'd shared for 2 years. The bed covered in memories. Sunday mornings, tangled in sheets, whispered promises in the dark. But tonight it felt cold foreign, like I didn't belong there anymore. I think you should pack a bag, I said. Stay with your brother for a while. Justin's head jerked up. What? I need space. And I think you need to figure out what you actually want. You're breaking up with me over this. His voice dripped disbelief. I forced myself to meet his eyes. No, I'm breaking up with you because of everything leading up to this. Tonight just made it obvious. His face twisted. You're crazy. You're actually insane. He grabbed his phone off the nightstand, pacing the room. I'm not leaving. This is my apartment, too. No, I said firmly. It's my apartment. I signed the lease. You moved in. Your name isn't on it. That stopped him cold. His eyes narrowed. You're seriously doing this. I'm seriously doing this. He cycled through reactions like he was onto the bed. You're going to regret this. No one's going to put up with your drama the way I have. Then guilt, his voice lowering softer. After everything I've done for you, all the times I supported you, You're really throwing this away. Then bargaining, grabbing my hands, forcing me to look at him. We can fix this, Natalie. Counseling. A reset. Please, don't do this. Each tactic lasted barely a minute before I shook my head. I've already made up my mind. He stared at me, his jaw tight, then ripped his hands away. Fine, fine. But when you come crawling back in a week, don't expect me to be here. I won't be crawling back. He shoved clothes into a duffel bag, muttering curses under his breath. At 2 a.m., he slammed the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. And then there was silence. I sat on the bed, staring at the dent in the mattress, where he'd just been waiting to feel something: anger, grief, relief, anything. But all I felt was numbness. It was over. And even though my heart hadn't caught up yet, some part of me knew it was the beginning of something else. The morning after the wedding, the world felt unreal. I hadn't slept. My body was heavy with exhaustion, but my mind wouldn't stop spinning. The silence in the apartment was deafening. His shoes were gone from the entryway, his jacket missing from the back of the chair, but the faint smell of his cologne still clung to the air. I wanted to crawl into bed and never move, but I had promised Sophia I'd be at the vineyard for the brunch, and I wasn't going to let Justin's betrayal steal another moment from her. So I put on a simple dress, tied my hair back, and drove through the winding roads back to the place where everything had fallen apart. The vineyard looked softer in the morning light, rows of grapevines kissed by dew, the patio set with mimosas and fruit platters. Guests laughed sleepily, sharing stories from the night before. But the moment I stepped onto the patio, heads turned. My mother's face tightened, my father's jaw clenched. Sophia broke away from a cluster of bridesmaids and rushed to me. Natalie, she whispered, pulling me into a hug that smelled of hairspray and lavender. You look like you didn't sleep. I didn't, my voice cracked. Her hand squeezed mine. Where's Justin? I swallowed. Gone. Within minutes, I was seated at a table with my parents and Sophia, their expressions a storm of anger and worry. Tell us everything, my father said. His tone wasn't gentle. It was clipped sharp like steel. So I did. Over plates of fruit salad and scrambled eggs, I told them exactly what had happened. How Justin had leaned into Clara at the bar. How he'd said those words so casually, so cruelly. How he'd dismissed me as oversensitive when I confronted him. By the time I finished, my mother's face was flushed with fury. That boy has some nerve, she snapped. At my daughter's wedding. In front of family. He humiliated you in public, Natalie. I don't care if he was drunk. That is unforgivable. Mom, no, she cut me off. I got your job. I saw the way he dismissed you. But this was the final straw. He is not welcome in this house again. My father nodded, his jaw set. Agreed. If he shows up at Thanksgiving, he'll be the one turned away at the door. I felt my throat tighten. You're serious. Sophia leaned across the table, her eyes blazing. We all heard it, Natalie. It wasn't just a slip. It was who he really is. And you don't need someone like that in your life. The tears I'd been holding back spilled over hot and fast. I spent 4 years convincing myself he loved me, that the little jabs didn't mean anything, that we were building a future together. You were building, Sophia corrected gently. He was just standing there waiting for something better. That's not love. Her words pierced me, but in a way that set something free. I nodded, wiping my face, quickly embarrassed by my breakdown in the middle of brunch. But instead of pity, I saw only determination in my family's eyes. We've got you, my dad said. Whatever you need. You're not going through this alone. That promise was more healing than anything else. Still, the universe didn't give me much time to breathe. That afternoon, my phone buzzed. A message from Justin lit up the screen. Justin, hey, can we talk? I was drunk. I didn't mean it like that. I didn't reply. An hour later, another ping. Justin, Natalie, please. Don't do this over one mistake. You know I love you. My hands shook, but I pressed block. He tried again through a mutual friend, Amanda, who called me that evening. Natalie, he's a wreck. He says he can't eat, can't sleep. He just wants to explain. I almost laughed. Explain? How do you explain looking the woman you've lived with for years in the eye and telling another girl, she's the one you should have chosen? I'm not interested in explanations, I told Amanda, and I don't want you caught in the middle. She hesitated. Okay, but just don't close the door completely. The door isn't just closed, I said softly. It's locked. That night, lying alone in bed, I replayed not just the wedding, but every moment leading up to it. The way he never introduced me as an equal at his work parties, just as my girlfriend Natalie. The way he rolled his eyes when I was passionate about a project as if my enthusiasm was childish. I'd brushed it off as quirks. I'd told myself all couples had flaws, that love was about compromise. But it wasn't compromise, it was erosion. He'd been chipping away at me piece by piece until I didn't recognize how small I'd become. And now, with one sentence, he had exposed the truth: he'd never really seen me as enough. The numbness began to shift that night. Beneath the hurt, beneath the exhaustion, something else stirred, a thin thread of resolve. He could text, he could beg, he could try to pull our friends into it, but I wasn't going back. This was my out, and for the first time in years, I realized I had to take it. The first week after the wedding was a blur. My phone became a battlefield of messages I refused to open. At first, Justin's texts were apologetic. "Justin, Natalie, please. I was drunk. I didn't mean it. Justin." It was a stupid joke. Clara knows that. Don't throw us away over this. By day 3, they grew more desperate. "Justin, I can't sleep. I can't eat. You're my whole life. Justin, just talk to me. One conversation. That's all I'm asking." By the end of the week, the tone shifted. "Justin, wow. Really? After everything I've done for you, you won't even respond, Justin. You're being childish. You'll regret this." Every time his name lit up my screen, my stomach twisted. But instead of answering, I blocked him. Then he tried from a different number. I blocked that one too. It didn't stop. He reached out through Amanda again, then through another friend, Jason, who texted me. "He says he loves you, Natalie. That he messed up, but he's not a bad guy." I stared at the words until my vision blurred. For years, I'd been telling myself that exact thing. He's not a bad guy. But that wasn't the point anymore. It didn't matter if he was bad. What mattered was that he wasn't right for me. So I called Jason and told him calmly, "I don't need anyone running interference. Please don't involve me in his drama." Jason hesitated. "You really mean that?" "I really do." Some friends faded after that, aligning themselves with Justin, or simply choosing neutrality that felt like betrayal. But the real ones, Sophia, a few close coworkers, stood firm at my side. I didn't realize how much I'd been holding my breath until I sat across from a therapist 2 weeks later. Her office was quiet, filled with soft light and muted blues. She asked me why I was there, and I broke open. "He made me feel small," I whispered. For years, I thought it was just me being sensitive. But he made me feel like nothing I did was ever enough. And I stayed. She tilted her head. "Why do you think you stayed?" The question knocked the wind out of me. Why had I? Because it was comfortable. Because I was afraid of starting over at 29. Because I thought love was supposed to be hard work, even when most of the weight was on my shoulders. I walked out of that session raw, but lighter. For the first time, I wasn't excusing him. I was seeing clearly. Meanwhile, Justin's life started to unravel, or at least that's what I heard through whispers and screenshots. He'd thrown himself into work, but according to Amanda, he'd snapped at his boss after taking too many personal calls. He missed deadlines. Colleagues started avoiding him. He tried dating, but it backfired spectacularly. One girl blocked him after he showed up at her office uninvited. Another ended things after 2 weeks, telling mutual friends he was clingy and bitter. And then there were the screenshots. Desperate late-night texts to Clara, the same bridesmaid he'd humiliated me for, pleading for a chance, promising he could be better. She'd shut him down politely at first, then bluntly. Eventually, she shared the messages with Sophia, horrified at how far he'd fallen. When Sophia showed me, I felt a strange mixture of vindication and pity. Vindication because he'd revealed his true self. Pity because even Clara, the woman he'd put on a pedestal, wanted nothing to do with him. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Instead, I just felt nothing. Because while he spiraled, I was healing. I threw myself into work, taking on bigger projects that scared me, that forced me to grow. For the first time in years, I wasn't minimizing my job as just drawing lines. I was designing homes, schools, places where people would live their lives. And I was proud of it. I joined a morning yoga class. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected while in Justin's shadow. I started laughing again, really laughing, the kind that left my stomach aching in the best way. Slowly, the pieces of myself I'd lost began to return. One night, 3 months after the wedding, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror while brushing my teeth. My eyes were still tired, but there was something different, something steady, resilient. I didn't look broken anymore. That's when I realized I was finally detaching. Justin could send all the texts in the world, but I didn't feel the urge to respond. I didn't even feel the twist in my stomach anymore when his name appeared in a group chat. It was like watching a storm from behind glass. He raged, and I stayed dry. One final message slipped through on an unblocked number. "Justin, I messed up. I know I did. But haven't I suffered enough? Please, just one more chance." I deleted it without hesitation, because I finally understood his suffering wasn't my responsibility. And for the first time in years, I felt free. By the 5th month after the wedding, the fog had finally begun to lift. I wasn't magically healed. There were still mornings when I woke up with a hollow ache, still nights when I replayed old conversations, wondering how I could have let things go on so long. But the difference now was that I didn't feel defined by those thoughts. They came and went like passing clouds. Work became my anchor. I buried myself in a new project, an ambitious mixed use building in the heart of the city. The kind of project that could change the skyline, the kind of challenge I used to dream about back in school. That's how I met him. Daniel Chen, structural engineer, brought in to consult on load bearing designs for the building's unique curved facade. He was a few years older than me, tall, with an easy smile that felt disarmingly genuine. We were supposed to talk numbers, load distribution reinforcement materials, stress tests. But somewhere in that first meeting, while tracing lines across blueprints, the conversation shifted. You know, he said, tapping the paper with his pencil, I've always admired architects. You get to dream in shapes and light. I just make sure the thing doesn't collapse. I laughed, actually laughed, and surprised myself. Trust me, without you, my dreams would be piles of rubble. You're the safety net. He grinned. Safety net, I'll take that. Something about the way he said it, light but respectful, stuck with me. Justin had always made jokes that made me feel small. Daniel's humor was different. It built me up. Over the next few weeks, we found excuses to linger after meetings. Sometimes it was coffee at the cafe downstairs. Sometimes it was long walks back to the parking garage where our conversations wandered far from work. He told me about his parents' immigrants who'd worked double shifts to put him through school, about his little sister who was studying medicine, about his love for hiking, how he'd once gotten lost on a trail in Colorado and had to sleep under the stars with nothing but a granola bar and a water bottle. And I told him things I hadn't said out loud in years, about how I used to sketch buildings in the margins of my notebooks as a kid, about how I wanted to design not just structures but spaces that people would remember, schools where children felt inspired, homes that felt like sanctuaries. He listened, really listened, not with polite nods or half-distracted glances at his phone. His eyes stayed on mine, steady, curious, as though my words mattered. It was intoxicating in its simplicity. One evening, after a particularly long work day, we grabbed dinner at a little Italian place near the office. Halfway through my pasta, he leaned back in his chair. So he said, "What's your story?" I twirled my fork slowly. "What do you mean?" "You know, everyone has a story. Why is someone like you single?" The question might have stung once, but coming from him, it didn't. It felt honest, not judgmental. I hesitated, then gave him the abbreviated version. 4-year relationship. Ended badly. I'm still processing. He nodded, not pushing. Her loss, he said simply, then corrected himself with a grin. His loss, I mean. I blinked, caught off guard by how matter-of-fact it sounded. No pity, no awkward silence, just acceptance. Something in me softened that night. We didn't rush. Daniel wasn't the type to push for labels or grand declarations. We built something slowly, coffee dates that turned into dinners. Dinners that turned into quiet evenings, cooking in each other's kitchens. He asked me about my projects with genuine curiosity, even pulling out a notebook once to sketch ideas with me, laughing when his drawing looked more like a potato than a building. When I asked about his work, his eyes lit up as he explained the elegance of math in beams and columns. There's beauty in strength, he said once, almost shyly. And for the first time, I understood that engineering was as much art as it was science. It was easy, so easy, I almost didn't trust it at first. After years of navigating landmines with Justin, every joke a barb, every conversation a competition. I wasn't used to this kind of calm. But maybe that was the point. One night, walking me to my car, Daniel paused. The city lights glowed around us, headlights streaking past. You know, he said softly, you have this way of looking at buildings like they're alive, like they're more than steel and glass. It's beautiful. Heat rose in my cheeks. I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. That night, lying in bed, I realized something. For the first time since the wedding, I wasn't thinking about Justin. I wasn't replaying his words, his smirk, the way he'd made me feel small. I was thinking about Daniel's laugh, about the way he saw me, not as too much or not enough, but simply as myself. And it hit me, I was finally beginning to imagine a future again. Not a vague someday with someone who made me doubt myself, but a real one, a steady one. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't built on sand this time. 10 months after Sophia's wedding, the vineyard was alive again, this time for my parents' 35th anniversary. They'd rented the same space on purpose, joking that it brought good luck. Maybe it did. String lights glowed in the twilight. Live jazz drifted across the patio, and the air buzzed with laughter and the clinking of glasses. This time, though, I wasn't walking in alone. Daniel's hand was warm in mine as we stepped onto the patio. My mother's eyes lit up the moment she saw us. Natalie, and this must be Daniel. She hugged him like he'd been part of the family for years. He smiled, easy and genuine. Thank you for having me. The place is beautiful. Even my father, who wasn't quick to warm to strangers, clasped Daniel's hand firmly. Welcome. I've heard about your work. Sophia winked at me from across the table. The approval in her eyes said everything. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I fit perfectly into the fabric of my family. No forced smiles, no hidden tension, just peace. As the evening unfolded, Daniel blended effortlessly, joking with my cousins, helping my mom carry extra chairs, even joining my dad in a long discussion about bridge engineering. I watched him move through the crowd, and the thought rose unbidden. This is what it's supposed to feel like. And then the air shifted. Sophia's expression changed first. I followed her gaze toward the entrance, and my stomach turned to stone. Justin. He walked across the lawn in a pressed shirt that hung a little too loosely, as if he'd lost weight. His face looked drawn, shadows under his eyes, betraying sleepless nights. For a fleeting second, I barely recognized him. But then his eyes locked onto me, and I felt the old twist in my gut. You've got to be kidding me, Sophia muttered. Daniel's hand brushed mine. Who's that? I swallowed hard. Justin, my ex. The wedding one. Yeah. Before Sophia could storm over, I raised a hand. I've got this. I stepped away from the crowd, meeting Justin near the edge of the lawn, far enough to avoid a scene, but close enough that my family could see I wasn't alone. Natalie, he said, his voice cracking on my name. Please, just 5 minutes. You weren't invited, Justin. I know, but you won't answer my calls, and I need you to understand. He took a step closer. I stepped back. The distance was deliberate. That night at the wedding, he said quickly, I was drunk. I was stupid. I didn't mean it. My jaw clenched. You didn't mean to say it out loud. That's all. No, his eyes were wild. I love you, Natalie. I've been lost without you. I lost friends. I almost lost my job. Don't you see I've paid for it? Haven't I paid enough? I looked at him carefully, at the desperation etched into his features. For a moment, I searched for the man I'd loved, the one who used to make me Sunday pancakes, who held me through storms. But all I saw was someone who had chipped away at me until I barely recognized myself. You didn't pay for it, I said softly. I did. Every time you made me feel small. Every time you mocked my work, my dreams. Every time you made me doubt if I was enough. I paid for it, Justin, for years. He flinched, but I pressed on. And the worst part? You only realized my worth when you couldn't find something better. Clara didn't want you. No one did. And suddenly you remember me. His mouth opened, then closed. His face twisted. That's not true. You're twisting this. No, I cut him off. I'm finally telling the truth. His eyes darted past me toward the patio where Daniel was laughing with my mom. So what, you're just moving on with him? He's nothing special. You think he's going to love you the way I did? I felt a surprising calm as I shook my head. No, Justin. He already does, because real love doesn't humiliate. It doesn't tear you down. It doesn't make you wish you were someone else. He stared at me, his eyes glassy. So that's it. 4 years means nothing. It means I finally know what I don't want. My voice was steady, stronger than I expected, and I know what I do. Tears streaked down his face now, anger mixing with despair. You'll regret this. I took a breath, feeling the weight of every choice I'd made until this moment. No. For the first time in a long time, I won't. Sophia appeared at my side, then her posture protective. Is there a problem here? Justin looked between us, realization settling into his features like defeat. He knew there was no crack in the foundation. No door left open. His shoulders slumped. Goodbye, Natalie. He tried to make it sound final, profound. But to me, it was just sad. I didn't watch him leave. I turned back toward the glow of the patio, toward Daniel, toward my family. Sophia linked her arm through mine. You good? She asked quietly. I looked at her, then at Daniel, who was watching me with quiet concern, ready if I needed him. Yeah, I said, and this time I meant it. I'm good. We walked back into the light, the music swelling around us, the vineyard glowing like a promise. When Justin's figure finally disappeared beyond the vineyard gates, it felt as though a shadow lifted. For months, I dreaded the possibility of him showing up again, barging into my life with apologies or anger, trying to drag me back into the undertow of his chaos. And now that it had happened, the fear was gone. He'd tried, he'd begged, he'd threatened, and none of it mattered. Because I didn't belong to his story anymore. I walked back across the patio with Sophia's arms still linked through mine. The golden string lights swayed gently overhead, laughter floated from the tables, and the jazz band's soft notes carried through the cool night air. Life hadn't paused for Justin. It hadn't crumbled with him. It had kept moving forward, and so had I. Daniel looked up the moment I returned. His face softened with unspoken questions, but he didn't push. He just stepped close, slipping his hand into mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. That single gesture said everything. I'm here. You don't have to explain. Mom came over a few minutes later, her expression fierce. Was he bothering you? Not anymore, I said. She studied me for a long second, then smiled, proud, protective. Good, because you deserve peace. Peace. It was such a simple word, yet it landed like a revelation. The rest of the evening unfolded in a haze of warmth. I watched my parents slow dance to the same song they'd danced to on their wedding night 35 years ago. My father's hand rested at Mom's waist, steady, devoted, and she leaned into him like there was no one else in the world. I'd grown up watching that love quiet, unglamorous, but unshakable. Somewhere along the way, I'd forgotten that love was supposed to make you feel safe, not small, that it was supposed to lift you up, not wear you down. Justin had convinced me that love was endurance, that if I could just endure the little cuts, the jokes at my expense, the dismissal of my dreams, then maybe I'd prove I was worthy of his affection. But love wasn't meant to be endured, it was meant to be shared. And looking at Daniel, the way he blended seamlessly with my family, laughing with my cousins, asking my dad earnest questions about engineering, I realized I'd finally stepped out of survival mode. I was building again, not just buildings of steel and glass, but a life I could be proud of. Later that night, Daniel and I slipped away from the crowd, wandering into the rows of grapevines. The stars stretched endlessly overhead, the air cool against my skin. You okay? He asked quietly. I nodded. Better than okay. For the first time in a long time, I feel free. He squeezed my hand gently. Good. You deserve that. We stopped under an archway of vines, and for a moment I just looked at him, at the way his eyes met mine, without flinching, without calculation. There was no competition in his gaze, no need to prove himself by tearing me down. Just openness, respect. I was afraid, I admitted softly, afraid I'd never trust again, that I'd never believe in love after everything. Daniel tilted his head, thoughtful. Maybe it's not about believing in love. Maybe it's about believing in yourself first. Love just follows that. His words settled into me like seeds. Maybe he was right. I leaned into him, resting my head against his shoulder, and for the first time, the thought of the future didn't scare me. It excited me. Not because I needed him to complete me, but because I was whole on my own, and choosing someone who saw that was a gift, not a gamble. The music from the patio floated out to us, faint but steady. My parents' laughter echoed in the distance. Sophia's voice rang out somewhere, teasing a cousin. The vineyard glowed like a dream. I closed my eyes and let the moment sink in. 10 months ago, I thought Justin's betrayal had broken me, that I'd never recover from hearing him tell another woman he wished she were mine. But now, standing here under the stars, I realized that betrayal hadn't ended me, it had rebuilt me. It stripped away the illusion and forced me to see myself clearly, to choose differently, to demand better. And I had. When Daniel kissed my temple softly, it wasn't a fireworks moment. It wasn't a grand gesture. It was quiet, simple, true. And that was enough. As we walked back toward the glow of the party, my family waiting with open arms, I felt it deep in my bones. I wasn't defined by the man who couldn't see my worth. I was defined by the people who did. By my sister who stood by me. By my parents who protected me. By the woman I'd become when I chose to walk away. Love doesn't humiliate. Love doesn't belittle. Love doesn't make you wish for someone else. Love builds. And for the first time in years, I was ready to keep